Hey everyone, it's James Lambert, the motivational coach and speaker. I went from knockouts to knowledge and from headlocks to hugs. I still embrace people, just now in a more positive way. So hello everyone. For those of you that don't know me, I am James Lambert. I'm a motivational coach, mentor, speaker and author. And what I want to talk about today is my modern masculinity program. And this is a program that has been developed, quite frankly, over my entire lifetime. And I realised that these are the very tools, tips and strategies that effectively transform my life for the better. Because to put it in context, although I live for positivity and motivation, peace, kindness, compassion and great love today, it hasn't always been like that. In fact, far from it. As a former unbeaten bare-knuckle fighter, unlicensed boxer, mixed martial artist and bouncer, my life was immersed in a sea of violence, absolutely soaked in blood, a lot of negativity and hate, and ultimately depression. I was a very, very angry, unhappy young man. And so I projected that violence. And over many years, quite frankly, at my wit's end at how I was living, I sought, through personally challenging myself, to become better. I was sick of the anger in my life, particularly sick of the violence. And so modern masculinity was a template that I devised, which initially was just really for me, but it was how I really sought to be in the world and exist. And since using the very same tools and tips that I teach in this program and seeing firsthand how it transformed my life from negative to positive, I realised that this was a very effective template to teach to others. I now have the privilege to do so with individuals, entrepreneurs and businesses. And ultimately, it's a set of principles, and I used the body initially as the template, as it were. So just in brief, it starts with the mind. So, the mind as master and not a servant. So you become fully self-sovereign from the mind down. So you really begin to harness one's thoughts. I talk about the power of controlling your inner talk. And it's a very, very big topic. And of course, then we go down to the eyes, and I talk about the importance of what you actually focus upon. For previously, again, to put it in context, I focused on a lot of negative, violent things. And so, of course, that became my paradigm and my reality. I now choose to focus on positive, peaceful, loving things. Lo and behold, my life's changed for the better. We then move down to the mouth, and I believe in correct speech. Manners is so important, and I'm all for it. Too many, it's almost become laughably popular, swearing and so on, and maybe there's a time and a place for that, but for me it shows a lack of vocabulary, a lack of intelligence now. And so for me, correct speech is very benefiting the modern man, but also just the modern businessman, how you go about one's business. These tips are of course applicable for everyone, but I can only talk about it in the context of me, and so I called it modern masculinity. And it is particularly how I want young men to come up being now. So they're thinking right, they're focusing on the right things, they're talking politely, and so on it goes down. So literally you look after them and you get your heart in the right place. So we have a set of strong men, strong businessmen that aren't just physically tough, but they have the wisdom to incorporate that same physical toughness, but by listening to their heart, so it becomes tempered, true yin and the yang. So you see, very much like the samurai warriors of old, nobody could argue that, my goodness, were they tough warriors? You know, they could slay an opponent in a second. They were absolutely proficient at what they did in taking another's life in combat and in fighting. And yet, they also practiced very diligently the so-called softer arts. The art of tea making, calligraphy, drawing in the sand, starting again. All of these, again, to temper that force. Because as we see it in the micro and the macrocosm. We see it in like little bully middle management, little bullies in the playground, little bullies wherever, in the police force. And you see that's what comes with just overt power if it's not tempered. And that's why I really stress the importance of, again, a modern man, while being physically strong, also being very, very gentle. And to me, I've learned that great gentleness, that is true strength. Because I found myself, it was easy. It became commonplace for me to react to violence violently. What was harder was to control myself. Goodness me, that was the greater challenge. And so I realised that to control, and they harness and then use productively and proactively that same energy of anger, but usefully, and turn it into, if you like, your wounds into wisdom. Now that's the real art of alchemy. And so I talk about this in my Modern Masculinity program. And this video was just a brief introduction to what it is and what some of its aims are. As I say, I really am hopeful for the next generation of men and businessmen to really conduct themselves with great dignity. So we don't just have this brashness, this yobbo culture. Even if you are a professional in a nice suit and tie, if you're a bit of a bully boy, no, that's an old paradigm. I want you to understand you can be strong, as indeed I was and still am, and yet also have a vein of gentleness running through it, kindness, compassion, love. And they're not mutually exclusive. Indeed, when you put them together, you truly have something great. And so I teach on this, and I'm very, very passionate about it. So the new leaders coming through, the modern day leaders, the teachers, and the men, they are strong and gentle, and they practice what I call and term modern masculinity. So I hope that's been edifying for you, and I look forward to talking to more about it to you in the near future. Remember, you are unstoppable, and I believe in you.